I'm Helen Norbury, and this is Becoming Unapologetically Me, the show all about authentic self-expression with expert guests from the fields of health, leadership, and mindset. This show is here to show you that you don't need to conform to the expectations that friends, family, and society have of you, and actually what we can unearth when we find the courage to become the unapologetic version of who we are. Grab a cup of coffee and get your notepad out for this week's episode. Hello, and welcome back to Becoming Unapologetically Me. Today, I'm really excited to be talking to the creative genius that is Mandy Nicholson. And I can't wait to explore some of the business aspects of creativity with her today as well. Mandy, you call yourself the creative genius consultant. Where did your own creative journey begin? And when did you truly start to own that genius?
Ooh, that's a big question. So I followed the path and did my A-levels in art and design and printing and went off to uni in Edinburgh. Got my degree and then couldn't find a job in the creative space, which happens for a lot of creatives. So I got a proper job, as we do, that paid the bills. And I ended up in that proper job for decades, building myself a career in retail. And I was headhunted a couple of times, a really successful career. That's the other thing about creatives. We're very adaptable.
Yeah.
We're really adaptable. So we kind of find the best fit for what we're doing. And it wasn't until I had a series of unfortunate events in 2009 that kind of lost me everything and took me to rock bottom and also reset my life. And I started building it how I wanted to, but it was still a few years before I found the courage to step back into creativity because like many people, I believe the lies of society that you can't make any money as a creative.
Yeah.
Nice hobby, but you better have a proper job. Yeah. It was my late husband that gave me a loving push and said, stop talking about it and just do it. Yeah. That brought me back into my creative genius, if you like. But in those years, I'd learned so much about business and so much about entrepreneurship that I was able to apply that to the creativity. And that's what's kind of created the success.
Yeah. A sort of lovely hybrid of those two elements. Amazing. I think particularly as women, so many of us feel creative, but like your experience as well, really struggle to claim that identity apart from money, or maybe that is the big one, but maybe you can share with me what your thoughts are about what holds women back from really claiming that identity. And then how do you help them now to reclaim it?
I think this is now what I see all the time because I work with these amazing creative women. And it's such an area of comparison. And if you look at society and how it's made up, 83% of gallery exhibitions are white men. So already there's this barrier to women actually stepping into their creativity. Then I think the statistics on women leaving with creative degrees are 70% of them go into admin jobs, not into creative jobs.
Gosh.
So, you know, the odds are stacked against you, even if you decide that's a career you want. If you discover you're a creative or you've been creative since birth and you didn't follow the education in that creativity, you've got even more layers of imposter syndrome and comparisonitis and all these things. And it really affects self-worth. And so you just kind of dabble as a hobby. Most of these women are dabbling as a hobby and don't see their innate genius and their innate talent because they're comparing it to incomparable things, if you like.
My personal experience with that as well was when I came out of school, I had a perception that creative equals artistic. And it took a while for me to reframe that I can be creative without being artistic. And I was like, I used to love doing like making cakes and decorating cakes and things like that. And I didn't see that as creative because I thought creative meant I had to be able to draw a picture. And that was such a reframe that was so powerful for me to recognize that creative element within me, but without seeing it as being able to draw a nice picture. And I think now you help a lot of women to make more money with their creative flair. So what are some of the biggest mindset blocks that you see around creative people and being able to charge their worth?
Well, I see this all the time. I work with singers and dancers and sculptors. It's not just about painting. And even entrepreneurs that are building their businesses are by nature creatives.
Yeah.
But yeah, charging their worth is a big thing. They'll spend 6 months creating a music track, and then put it out for pennies, or if that, put it out for free on Spotify. And people will spend hours or days or weeks painting and then sell that piece for next to nothing. And it's it's about the mindset. The mindset, again, is layered. It's from society's messages of who am I to show up and charge this for what I do? Yet I always compare it to a plumber goes and does an apprenticeship for 3 years, and then they charge. Have you ever negotiated with a plumber on his hourly rate?
For sure.
No, because you just pay for the service, don't you?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
it's exactly the same. Seeing yourself being the same as everybody else, that you're as worthy. So we do a lot of work on mindset and self-worth and money mindset, because I don't deserve to be paid because I'm just a creative sits at the bottom of a lot of that. And it is the starving artist syndrome and all of the things that society has built and structured.
Yeah. I think also, like you say, where a lot of women have their creative outlet as a hobby, to then go, oh, but it's my hobby. I enjoy painting or singing or whatever their particular thing is. I can't charge for my hobby. And that's sort of recognizing the value of your time and the joy and what someone else is going to gain as a result of your creative outlet, whether it's a hobby or whether you want it to be a full-time source of income in the future. I think that can kind of get in the way as well a bit.
Totally. And I always start with, go on to the Association of Artists website and look at the hourly rates that it suggests that you charge as an artist starting out, an intermediate, and advanced. And you charge an hourly rate for the work that you do, plus materials, plus postage. Add it all up and then price your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you guide women to balance that passion about creating and producing the creative outlet thing with the practical side of building a profitable business?
So again, we look at all the things you would do in a non-creative business. What is your niche? What do your potential customers want and need? How do you bridge that gap and solve that problem? How do you attract them to you? How do you build this, position yourself as the expert and offer the free resource that gets them into your email? So it's building the tech structure around that, but also first identifying. A lot of creatives struggle with, I'm just an artist. But you're not just an artist, there's a niche within that. How do we lean into the niche and make you stand out as an artist or a creative or a singer or whatever it is you do? Yeah.
And that word just as well is
just
such a minimizing word in terms of owning your skill and owning your talent and your own genius as well, isn't it?
It's banned in my mastermind, that word.
So what does financial success look like through the lens of a creative? And how can we redefine wealth beyond just numbers?
I think, it's very different for creatives. They're not going for the 7-figure business goals or the 6-figure business goals. They're not money hungry. They just want enough to be able to live on. So it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
So I've just had 3 ladies graduate from the mastermind. And one is graduating with a 6-figure business because that's what she's worked towards, what she wanted, what we built the infrastructure for. And the other one is really happy doing £1,000 to £1,500 a week in her business. Another one is really happy doing £4,000 a month, doing exactly what she loves. It's very different for every creative. For some, £1,000 a month is enough. It's defined by the values, the lifestyle, how much they want to put into the tech and the social media that they all hate, and how much of a work-life balance they want with their creativity. Because they feel like they've sold their souls a lot of times when they come to me and they've not been doing what they really want to do? And the first question I ask is, what would you love to do every single day when you get out of bed and get paid for it?
So what other measures of success apart from finance do you and can you use with the creative people that you work with?
I use a lot of PR because it helps with the success, but it also helps with that expert positioning. Mm-hmm. And obviously, we look at, are you selling business to business or are you selling business to customer? Where does your art sit? It doesn't always sit as retail. And sometimes it sits in well-being with corporate companies. And it's very different. The business model is very different for each one. So I think it's about creating vision and having a goal that sits behind that vision and allowing them to feel how real that vision can be. So I'll give you an example. One of my artist clients who started with me just over a year ago was an artist. She painted beautiful work. She's an environmental artist, painting on recycled things, repurposing things.
Amazing.
And within 4 weeks of her being in the mastermind, I was like, I know exactly what your niche is and exactly where your success lies. She painted on used tea bags.
Oh, wow.
Yorkshire tea bags, actually. And she would empty them, dry them out, iron them, and paint miniature canvases on them. And I said, that's your niche. That is your niche.
Wow.
In the last year, she has actually been on BBC Live and on every single TV news station in the country, every radio station, and pretty much every press and media outlet. And she is now working in conjunction with Yorkshire Tea.
I was going to say that's got to be the next place. Yeah.
But what she did was she was able to give up a part-time job. She's able to earn enough regularly through her business. And the PR has leveraged that for her. But that doesn't work for everybody. It's different.
What an amazing niche and what an amazing sounding business. Going to have to look her up now.
Yeah.
You've written some powerful books. So what inspired you to put your story into words and what did you learn personally on that journey and that process of doing so?
Yeah. Yes, I have got several books. The first one, I suppose, is the Li-Fi one, which was my story from abundance to rock bottom. And that journey of how this series of unfortunate events that would make your hair stand on end was the making of me.
Yeah.
And I think it was an important story to tell, but it was also really important for me to work through that. It was very cathartic. It was very healing. And that story has inspired thousands of women, many of them that have come to work with me since reading the book. People say, I'd love to write a book, and most don't. Only 1% of people ever do.
Wow.
You should tell your story. And since then, I've brought together 30 women who are creative and neurodiverse to write a book called Beyond the Ordinary, where I tell their stories, and it sits alongside a self-help guide from me because there's a huge connection with neurodiversity and creativity.
Yeah.
Again, important to share those stories with the world so that we can normalize our differences.
For sure. I often talk to my daughter about this. She's got an ADHD and autism diagnosis, and explaining to her that school is designed for the neurotypical brain in most cases, but specifically at her school, designed for the neurotypical brain to train accountants and solicitors and doctors and those more traditional roles. But actually, the world has evolved so much to incorporate so many more creative possibilities for people who don't have a brain who works in exactly that way. And so just because school's not going exactly to plan doesn't mean that life won't go to plan, because there's so many more options once you're past the school gates, basically.
And you're so right to do that. Both of my children are autistic. My daughter's also ADHD and has EDS. I am autistic. I'm not diagnosed, but they had to come from somewhere. And I see so many of the traits in myself.
Yeah.
I also recognize it in almost every creative woman who comes to work with me. There's a lost generation of women that haven't been diagnosed, that have been fobbed off with anxiety and depression instead of nurtured. My son was diagnosed at 5 and my daughter was diagnosed at 25. And that's the difference between boys and girls. Yeah.
Yeah. It can present really differently in boys and girls. Yeah.
Totally. And I think because of that, there's all those other doubts that go on. As I said at the start, it's layered. All of these layered things that are going on with creatives can also mean that they're undiagnosed with conditions they didn't even know they had. It feels like a battle. It's such a relief when they come and join me on the mastermind and they go, these are my people and you're speaking my language.
Yeah, for sure. So what role has storytelling played in helping you and your clients to step into their unapologetic selves?
I have told my story through social media from the moment I lost everything in 2009. The first thing I did was reach out and said, I'm at rock bottom. I'm living in a council house. I'm going to start a cleaning business. Does anybody know who wants a cleaner? And I started from there, and I'd had a 6-figure job and a company car. And I thought, you know what? People need to see that it can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
And I shared that journey. And then I put a castle on my vision board in 2018 and said, I'm going to have a castle in Scotland and I'm going to do creative retreats for women all around the world. I became known as the castle lady. People were sending me links to castles. And I'd kind of got this in my head. And I ended up in Scotland in a miniature version of the very castle that was on my vision board, because I manifested it and lived it through my socials. So people began to trust me because I was doing what I said I was going to do. I was telling the bad days as well as the good. Storytelling is vital. People want to know that they are amongst people who understand them, that see them, that hear them, that want to get to know them. Yeah. There's lots of people telling these stories of, I can make you a 7-figure business owner, and they're not all true. They're not. They're definitely not. Let's normalize telling the truth a bit more on social media, I think, and being authentic and actually just showing up on your worst of days with a messy bun and no makeup on and saying this is how it is.
I think that's so important because I speak to so many people who are gauging their life against what they see on social media. And then they do genuinely start struggling with anxiety and depression because they feel like they're falling short in so many ways. They're falling short of a curated and polished version of someone's life. And like you say, one that may not even be true. And how can we compare ourselves to those sort of fantasy fairy tales? So now you're running your creative treats, maybe in your castle in Scotland. What happens? What's your experience of what happens in those when a woman steps away from the noise and gives herself the space to create and to be seen by someone like you as well? What happens in that space?
It's absolute magic is what I'm going to say, because never in their life do they go, I'm worth this, until they come here and walk through the doors. And when they come here, they literally can rock up with a backpack because everything's included. We feed them, all their art equipment's included. I take them in the forest painting. We go to the beach painting. I push them outside of their comfort zone. If they've never painted before, when they leave, they will be leaving with canvases.
Awesome.
Or we work with fabric or crafting or whatever it is, or words. But we also mind map. I get them doing a big 4-foot mind map online in paper with Sharpies that not only crunches the numbers in their business, but looks at every potential passive income stream that could be created and every potential thing that they could create in their life and business, which is very hard to do on a Zoom call and very hard to do in anything other than in person, because they've got me in front of them going, what about this? And what about this? How could you monetize this? What could you do with this? How do we create passive income from that? So it's a journey here, not only to creativity, but to business creativity that they might never anywhere else. Do you know, I had one client come here and she went home, and because I do creative retreats and then outside of the retreats, I do bed and breakfast, she went and put her house on Airbnb, bought a van, and now travels the world creating in a camper van called Vera while she earns money from a house on Airbnb.
Absolutely love that. Yeah. So you mentioned to me before we went on air about how Scotland has been a really healing place for you. But Can you talk a bit about that healing for you and also how the retreats serve as deeper healing or transformation for the women beyond the art, but what that bigger element of healing looks like?
Yeah, I do attract a lot of women that have experienced the same as me as well. So my husband died in COVID in 2020, which was a huge loss while we were all locked down. We couldn't have a funeral. We had 8 people at the funeral, no wait. The kids and I were in the house together grieving. It was a really tough time. And I think it was the catalyst for me going, do you know what? We're putting the house on the market in 2021. I put it on the market. And the same day I put it on the market, I sold it and I had to find something in Scotland. And it was like a series of events that manifested this place. So I moved here to give myself purpose. And one of the things that's very healing is creating purpose in your life again. And I created a purpose with my mini castle and doing retreats and bed and breakfast. And from there on in, I kind of, things have just happened. Things have, Four in a Bed phoned me and said, do you want to come on Four in a Bed? So I went on Four in a Bed. I was like, yeah, go on. I'll say yes to everything. I went on Four in a Bed. So I've been on the telly a couple of times. No. And it's been a journey of refinding me and what I truly wanted to do for the rest of my life and what was my real purpose. And I've seen women come here that have experienced grief, that do experience griefs. Women experience grief for many reasons, not just the loss of someone, the loss of themselves. They're grieving a lot of the time, the loss of a career, the loss of a marriage, the loss of children leaving home, lots of things. And we don't process a lot of that because we're doers and we get on with it and we just make do. When you stop for a bit and you go and sit in the forest and do a guided meditation and then paint in unabandoned, uncontrolled ways, because healing takes place at a very deep level. Yeah. Even my dogs, and I have 3 of them, one of them's blind and he tends to go to the person who needs him the most on a retreat. It's really strange. Mm-hmm. But even coming and spending time with my dogs who kind of just sit with you when you need it, it's a whole experience. And I think when you can identify how healing something is for you, you can share that more deeply with other women.
Yeah. I love animals for their healing energies so much. I had my first dog of my own, if you like, rather than a dog from when I was growing up, was a rescue dog. And he was fairly even in terms of how he split his time between my husband and myself. And then when I became pregnant with my son, he literally did not leave me. He spent his chin on my knees 24 hours a day if he possibly could. And it was so fascinating that he obviously felt a really different energy. And it's just so special, really special.
They know.
They absolutely do. So what would you say to a woman who's bursting with ideas, but feeling really stuck at the starting line of creating her or launching her creative business?
Don't try and do it on your own. Do reach out to somebody. It doesn't have to be me, but somebody that can help you. But do your homework because not everybody can. They'll tell you they can, but they don't. That doesn't necessarily mean they can. So, and I've even had my coach, Michelle Stonehill, who is very neurotypical. She sends all the creatives to me because she can't work with them.
Right.
So do be careful. Some people will accept you just because they want your money. And that's me being totally honest. Yeah. Find the right group of people. Go and join groups. See if they're your people. Leave them if they're not. Yeah. Do a bit of research to find the people that will resonate with you. Most successful, genuine successful people, if you reach out to them, will have an authentic conversation with you, give you some tips and point you in the right direction without charging you.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's so true. Finding that resonance with someone is such an important part of a relationship, whether it's a business relationship, personal relationship. So how do you then help your clients to grow and scale, but without burning out and really losing the essence of their creative joy?
I like to find the laziest and most productive way to do everything. It's my autistic trait. I've been doing it since I was in retail.
Yeah.
And I like to look at businesses and say, how long do you want to work in that business?
Yeah.
And let's build a business model that can deliver that for you. And I'm going to give you another example here. It helps, I think, to visualize if you can have an example. This wonderful lady come to me, joined me through a 5-day challenge, then joined my creative mastermind. She was ready to throw her paintbrushes in the bin. She'd never sold any art. And my question was, what do you love doing the most and want to do on a regular? Now, she struggled with her physical health. She had some disabilities. And she says, I'm restricted as to how many hours I can work. I love working with other people to create a canvas. So I volunteer in a disabled centre and we paint together and we create this joint canvas and I finish it up and they're always really proud of the work. And I said, that sounds like an event to me. Let's look at an event business model that you can use with your art that doesn't mean you have to work a lot. And the next day she was driving past an AA sign and it said wedding fair this way. And she turned off instinctively and went and spoke to them. And she came back to me and said, really excited. This is what happened today. And we built a business around her going to weddings. And she had this fantastic idea of creating your guest book on the wall by all of the guests at the wedding, participating in a canvas chosen by the bride and groom in their colours and the style that they want. And that's exactly what she does now. It's called the Signature Canvas. And she works 1 day a week at a wedding, one wedding a week.
Yeah.
And she's earning around £4,000 a month. That's enough for her. So we look at, let's build a business model that can sustain you in what you do. Right, using your talent and in the time that you can spend in your business. For others, it's been building passive income streams like book and patterns. A lot of creatives can write patterns if they're textile artists or knitters or crocheters. Passive income on Etsy, very big income stream. So we look at the business and how long you want to be in it as well. Otherwise, you're working 100 hours a week, aren't you?
And that's when the burnout comes and the love leaves and all of those things. Yeah. So what have you learned about visibility, especially as a creative woman stepping fully into leadership?
That you've just got to show up every single day. And this is the icky bit that no creative really like, that you've got to show up every day, whether it be a podcast like this, whether it be a message on social media. And what I say is, look, let's look at that as being part of your job. You've got to be visible. It's one. If you were in an office, you'd have a number of strategic things that you would do between 9 and 5. You'd go to work at 9, you'd finish at 5, you'd do things. Look at your business in that way. And visibility is part of that. So how do you create a block of time that creates your visibility for the week in one block? And then job done, and that's part of your working week. And that's how I approach it with people, is how do you create and schedule enough posts so that everybody's going to see you every day with your messaging.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's about, again, this is me with the lazy productive thing. How can we do that in the most productive way that still gives the appearance of you showing up all the time?
Yeah, for sure. So how do you stay creatively inspired and connected to your purpose, even when there's moments or seasons of doubt, grief, challenge? How's that all come together?
I think for me, like any other creative, I have multiple projects on the go at any one time. So there's a book half written. I've got 3 sewing projects on the go. I've got 2 canvases in the studio and a load of ideas written in my diary that I'm looking at right now that is. And what I tend to do is have all of that and allow my brain to do that, but park certain things and think this is the focus. In the evening, I might sit and sew. I don't sit and watch the TV. I sit and sew. I have the TV on as background or music on as background, and I sit and sew. I have times where I'm in the garden and connecting with nature. I have times, and I think it's allowing yourself to kind of go with the flow a little bit as well. As long as the main jobs get done. And I have a little creative process called rocks, pebbles, and sand in my diary. The rocks must get done. They're immovable and they're highlighted in red. And those are the things I know, those are the times I know I've got to be in my business and doing that thing.
Yeah.
Then we've got pebbles, which are amber. So it's like a traffic light system. And the pebbles can be moved a couple of days if I'm not in the mood, and it won't have an impact. And the sand are the things I love doing and are nice to do, the extras that I can waft into another week. if I need to.
Yeah.
So I think as long as I've always got my planning based on my own creativity, I can't plan on an Excel spreadsheet and follow that neurotypical process. It has to be more creative. And what I would say to every creative out there is find a way of planning that suits your brain.
I was just thinking how amazing that the number of people that I've met or I've worked with where those very rigid plans don't work, and having something that's a little bit more flowy and works with, suddenly you get this hyper focus and you're like, let's get going. And then that kind of another day is, today's not the day for that. And just having a slightly more fluid plan sounds beautiful for that sort of a brain. Yeah, amazing.
And it's worked for me. I have 2 six-figure businesses and I'm about to retire. So at the end of the day, it can't be that bad, can it?
Hit all the goals from your perspective. Amazing. So what does it mean to you to be unapologetically Mandy? And what would you love every woman listening to remember about her creative power?
I think for me, unapologetically Mandy was 17-year-old Mandy who was ready to take on the world, fight every cause, dress how she liked and show up. Then she had to fit into society for a bit. And I think unapologetically me is revisiting 17-year-old Mandy, but with knowledge and experience and going, actually, I am going to wear what I want. I am going to show up. I am going to fight for the causes I believe in. Unapologetically, the difference between 17-year-old Mandy and 60-year-old Mandy is 60-year-old Mandy doesn't care what anybody thinks anymore. And that is a gift.
I wish we could all learn that at 13 or something, rather than having to wait until we've got so many years of experience under our belt.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. And I've already got about half a dozen people in my head that I need to tell about this episode. I think it's so inspiring, and particularly as women, how important it is to tap into our creative side, whether we currently hold the identity of a creative woman or not, but we all have that inside of us. So finding it and allowing it to be a part of us outside of everything that we've been taught growing up about whether that is or isn't a good route forwards in the future. So I've really enjoyed this conversation and giving us all permission to really explore that side of ourselves. So thank you so much for today.
No, thank you for having me, Helen. It's been great.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Becoming Unapologetically Me. Make sure you subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts so you never miss an episode.